Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I, as always, am Grestar, and this is Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Specifically, it is a PC any percent new game speedrun of Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, and as of today, May 26, when I'm recording this post-commentary, it is currently the world record for this particular category. So as a bit of information, the board is currently split between PC and console. All of the consoles are bunched together, so PS5, PS4, Xbox One, the Nintendo Switch, etc. But PC and console are separated, so just so you know that. Really quickly here to talk about some of the decisions I'm making. First, I picked a Majin, and I'll go into this a little bit more later, but I believe that Majin is the fastest of the 5 races to run, mostly due to the transformation split, and then in part just due to the female Majin in particular has an infinite combo, which again I'll go over a little bit later. You also might have seen that I made myself as short as possible and as bulky as possible, and that affects my stats in the game. So basically your height determines whether you have a larger health pool if you're taller, or whether you're faster if you're shorter, so I made myself as short as possible. And then the bulkiness determines whether you're better at ki blasts if you're slimmer, and better at like physical attacks if you're bulkier. So I made myself as bulky as possible, intending to rely in this speedrun on using the Majin female infinite combo. Another thing that I selected, you might have seen this pop-up where I got to choose between 3 different options. They were basically, I like to have my fights up close and personal, I like to keep a distance, and I can go either way. I picked that third hybrid option because the options determine what skills you start out with. And the third option gives me both Meteor Crash, which I use quite a bit, and Consecutive Energy Blast, which I use for sure on 2 parts, and then if I need to play it really safe, or if I just need to finish someone off. You know, if I get them down to like just a little bit of health, but they're knocked away from me so I can't immediately initiate a physical combo, I'll send that blast off at them in hopes to finish them off. And so right now, while I'm just running through, I'm doing the very basic, like, objective tutorials, basically. I'll talk a little bit more about why I believe that Majin is the fastest of the 5 races. So again, as I mentioned, part of it is due to the transformation. Each race has their own unique race-specific transformation, and each of those transformations has unique requirements. And so just based upon those requirements, I believe that Majin is the fastest, Saiyan is very close in 2nd place, Earthling in 3rd, Namekian in 4th, and Frieza in 5th. So for the Majin transformation, what we ultimately have to do is we'll have to give Majin Buu, I believe, 102 stars worth of food. I say stars worth because, as you can see with items, we haven't seen any items yet, but if you pay attention later on in the run, when I'm looking at an item, on the left side, there'll be a star next to it. For food, it's between 1 and 3. For normal items, it's between 1 and 5 stars. And they generally determine the star, or the item's rarity and quality, essentially. For food, typically we would give Majin Buu 99 water and then 2 chocolate. In this run, I'm doing something a little bit differently because I'm trying to get an early transformation. And at that point in the story, at the point that I want to actually get the transformation, the item shop doesn't sell chocolate, it still only sells water, so you'll see me deviate a little bit, but the point is we need to feed him 102 stars worth of food so that he spawns 3 little Majin Buulings, which I don't think is a proper term, but I like it. And then we fight Majin Buu, and then within the same fight, you know, he comes back alive basically. We fight him again along with 3 small Majin Buu. As for the Saiyan transformation, you fight Vegeta twice, and then he's like, what? You haven't unlocked your Saiyan potential? Kind of thing. And so then you have to fight him and Goku a few times within the same battle. And then you unlock the Saiyan transformation. And so there are more fights involved in the Saiyan transformation than in the Majin transformation. But what really brings the Saiyan transformation closer, to, in my mind, still not quite as fast, but much closer, is the fact that at a different point in this run, in order to progress, you need to have 15 TP medals. Otherwise, Elder Kai just won't let you take on the next story mission.
Hi there.
Both of the Vegeta fights actually give you 1 TP medal each, so you could reasonably cut out 2 fights earlier. You'll see over the course of this run, I'm doing 2 Yamcha fights here, and then I'm going to go and do the required parallel quest, and then soon enough I'll do 2 Raditz fights, so that I get 5 TP medals. And then I will be doing the Yamcha Turtlestone hunt, which only unlocks once you have done at least one training thing like I'm doing right now with Yamcha, where he throws a Turtlestone, and if you collect it and bring it back to him fast enough, he will give you 10 TP medals, and so those 10 plus the 5 that I collected earlier would give me a total of 15. So with the Saiyan transformation, basically just you can omit the 2 Raditz fights that I would do, and just do 2 Yamcha, the required parallel quest, the 10 TP medals from the Yamcha Turtlestone hunt, and then the 2 Vegeta fights. So that took a while to talk about the differences between those transformations, but I believe we covered everything. So to talk about some of the things that I have done that I just kind of breezed over while I was going over the transformation discussion. You saw me get in my vehicle, drive up here. I talked to that female NPC that was standing beside Piccolo, and she gave me a Senzu Essence Capsule. What I'm going to do is, after this fight, I'll drive to the item shop, I will sell that Senzu Essence Capsule for 1500 Zeni, and then I will talk to Tosak, this old Namekian standing kind of in the back, and he'll actually level me up 1 level at a time if I keep giving him Zeni, which is the basic currency in this game. After I talked to her to get that item, I talked to the transfer shop clerk just so I could unlock the time, you see that? The time nest as a viable teleportation option. And then I went straight up to do these Yamcha fights. And again, part of the reason I'm doing these Yamcha fights is because I need TP medals, so each of these 2 that I do give me 1 TP medal each. I said each twice, but you get me. But they also unlock the potential for Yamcha to host his Turtlestone special class. And so that's necessary if you want the best times in this run. You need to have the Turtlestone hunt, and you need to get 10 TP medals from it. Another thing I did, though, between the first and Yamcha training lessons I did, was I asked him to be my instructor. And the reason for that is because the instructor has a set position being in the Patroller Academy, which you saw was where Elder Kai was, and you need to speak to him just because that's part of the objective of this part in the game. So setting him as my instructor really quickly just meant that as soon as I was done with the second Yamcha fight, I would essentially be automatically teleported to the Patroller Academy and wouldn't have to go there on my own. But then from there, from the Patroller Academy, after talking to Elder Kai, we used the transfer shop clerk to teleport to the Recreation Plaza. I went to a shop, I unequipped my scouter, I sold both the scouter and the Senzu Essence Capsule just so I could get some more Zeni, so I could purchase more levels from Tosak, and then I go into the required parallel quest tutorial. So with this tutorial, you get to pick yourself, obviously, and then you get to pick 2 NPC allies. I don't know which ally is the best. I've been going with Vegeta Evolved, but I'm tempted to try changing that up, in part because just the 2 lines that he says when you pick him are longer than I would like. And I'm curious what Bojack, for instance, would have to offer, because I think that Bojack could also do a good job just because he's physically stronger. His Super Soul is it just increases his melee attacks after, a bit after the match has started. But since this first part of the parallel quest is you having to just pick up items, I think that his Super Soul would likely trigger by the time you're actually fighting people. Because, now we still have to go revive Krillin, too. Surely it would activate by then, and then he'd be stronger against the Cybermen. But anyway, that's just theorizing for future runs kind of thing. One of the big reasons why we level up with Tosak before coming into this parallel quest is first, the difficulty of the parallel quest is set. It is static. It is not, it doesn't scale depending on how strong you are. So me being at level 9 now obviously means that I'm going to have an easier time against these opponents. But on top of that, the 2 NPC allies that I choose to come with me reflect my level. So because I'm level 9, both of the Vegeta that I picked are also level 9, which in my mind just means that, not only am I going to have an easier time finishing off these opponents, but so will my NPC allies. You can see here I hover over them with my scouter, my quote-unquote scouter. It's just it's me squinting a little bit harder, because I sold my scouter. But they were also level 9. Krillin is always level 1, the one that you revive. But the others are leveled up too. So first we have these 2 Cybermen to fight. I know that at this level, I can do 2 combos and finish them off. And so the first one is always pretty easy. The second one, though, not so much. This one, it actually worked out really well, but sometimes the NPC allies really batter them around and it makes it difficult just to connect and finish them off. But yeah, we need to go here into this little nook to find the Kaiware Man. And at that point, you might have seen that my stamina broke, and I want it to break at that point. Basically, female Majin's special like ability, because each race has their own inherent stats and abilities, and then the two sexes that are presented, if there are different sexes presented, like Namekian and Frieza, there's only one. They also have different stats or abilities. And so the female Majins is that when their stamina is broken, it recovers really rapidly compared to other races or sexes. And so if I can control it, it's generally better for me to like knowingly break my stamina to have it recover, you know, much more quickly than to stand still or just not be dashing or fighting to have my stamina recover naturally. So after that Kaiwari man, you saw that, you know, obviously we're fighting these 3 NPC time patrollers. I just want to finish them off as quickly as possible at this point. I, you know, misclick some buttons, but it happens. And now we are waiting for Yamcha and Tien to appear. But again, you see, I'm flying around purposely to deplete my stamina just because I want it to break so that it recovers that much more quickly. With how long it takes for Yamcha and Tien to show up at the end here, it probably would have been fine without me purposely breaking my stamina if I just waited for it to replenish on its own. But I figure there's no harm in, you know, making it go a little bit faster myself. So something that I had thought for a while with this fight against Yamcha and Tien was that if you beat the two quickly enough, you'll get to skip some extra dialogue at the end of the fight. And by quickly enough, I mean before Elder Kai says, like, talk about good timing, why don't you jump in there and join them? But that doesn't appear to be the case, because you can see here, I beat Yamcha and Tien before Elder Kai ever starts saying that, and you'll see we still get just a little bit of extra dialogue. Or do we this time? Yes, we do.
So close. Yamcha, I'll avenge you.
So as far as I know, I mean, thankfully we did get extra dialogue with Yamcha and Tien talking after they had died, but it thankfully wasn't anything long. I think it's just random whether or not that extra dialogue appears. But there can be much longer strands of dialogue, and that's part of the reason too why I've been picking like Vegeta Evolved, because depending on the character that you bring along with you, other dialogue can happen. Like, I'm pretty sure if I bring Goku, for instance, that there's, you know, unique dialogue to them that can happen, and that's no good. So we go here, we sell the Hercule badges that we got as a reward for those parallel quests, and then we immediately go to Tosok to use those to level up. Becoming a higher level before going into the Saiyan history part, I think is important, because Saiyan history is all about beating the fights as quickly as you can. A lot of the fights throughout this game are entirely dependent, or at least largely dependent, on how fast the dialogue passes. And, you know, obviously, I say how fast, but that's a set amount of time. Like, you just have to wait for dialogue to pass so an enemy will stop being invulnerable, or for the scene to transition to the next fight, etc. But with the Saiyan history fight, there are 2 dialogue skips, where if you beat you know, the opponent down to half health by a certain point, you get to skip a chunk of dialogue, etc. And then the other fights are just beat them as quickly as possible. But to talk about what's happening here. So first, I went and talked to the stylist, and then I went and talked to the TP metal shop clerk, and then backed out and talked to him again, and it had me talking to Bulma. I don't know exactly why that works, but I was happy when I found it, because the issue with those two and the multiplayer modesman there, which is also why I talked to him, is if you don't talk to them, like, now, when it's convenient for you, they will later on pull you out of the time nest at just, you know, inopportune moments, basically, to give you their whole spiel. So, in talking to them when I was already down there in the Recreation Plaza, it lets me stay in the time nest and just keep jumping into more and more missions, you know, one after the other, rather than being pulled back to the Recreation Plaza, you know, driving up the stairs and back through the portal and running up to Elder Kai, just over and over again. But yes, now we're going into the actual fights of the Saiyan history split, and like I mentioned, these 2 fights, this Nappa and then the Raditz fight after it, depend upon how quickly you can beat them, and that if you get Nappa down to half health before Yamcha finishes saying, "Who cares who it is?" right there, you skip about 20 seconds of dialogue. It jumps immediately to Gohan saying that presence is so strong yet familiar, when ordinarily he would say, "Look at those eyes, they're bright red," or something along those lines. You can tell that we got the skip because at the end of this, we'll actually see Gohan say that line about the red eyes. But then it will just kind of immediately cut off what was going to happen next, you know, the rest of that like 20 seconds of dialogue, and transition the scene. So you can see there, look at those eyes, they're bright red. And Gohan starts to say something else, but it cuts him off, and we actually finish the battle. So that's the first instance that we have discovered so far, at least, of a dialogue skip in this game. And the same thing with this fight. We need to get Turles down to about half health before Elder Kai finishes saying this line. He looks like a Saiyan of some kind. So Goku immediately says this guy looks just like me for some reason. Whereas ordinarily, Turles would say, "My name is Turles," and begin basically a 30-second monologue. So having gotten Turles down to half health before that dialogue ended, we were able to skip 30 seconds. So between these two fights, that was about almost a minute saved, you know, 50 seconds between the two of them. So it's pretty important. And that's why, again, I do take the time to level up with Saga just to better ensure that I do get these dialogue skips. And then with the rest of the fights in this run, the dialogue isn't important. Like, it doesn't matter how much passes, it's just a matter of how quickly can you knock them out. And so we'll see that with these upcoming fights. I'm just trying to be as efficient as possible with the damage that I deal. And so I try to measure out like how many full combos of my like heavy attack I need. And then when I can start Meteor Crash to finish them off. So after this third combo, I start my Meteor Crash, I finish him, I immediately lock onto Vegeta and try to go for him. When I'm high enough in the air, when I knock people down with that spike attack that marks the end of my combo, I'll usually vanish down and then immediately continue the combo. If they're close enough to the ground, you just want to send out a little blast of ki and then tap left trigger and forward and then connect with another Y, like just keep the combo going. But if they're far enough away, you either have to vanish down to meet them again, or after your blast of ki, fly down, connect with an X, like a light attack, and then go back into your heavy attack combo. With this fight, you don't need to fight Great Ape Vegeta just yet. Just worry about taking down Great Ape Nappa. And the fastest way that we've so far found to do this is to use the bomb ki blasts. Depending on your race or the Super Soul that you have equipped, your charged ki blast will differ. So the Majin's default charged ki blast is this bomb ki. And then others have like homing or like a burst fire or that kind of thing. And so we just want to first bomb them with the bomb ki blast to get that like purple pinkish energy bar down, because that will make them vulnerable, and then just keep spamming it until their health is all the way depleted. And there we go. This split is over, so we'll mark it on the clear.
This is all because
Where you mark it doesn't terribly matter. I mark it on the clear. What's more important is that you try to be consistent with yourself as a runner. Like, obviously, the start of the run and the end of the run do have set, like, beginning and stopping points for the timer. But throughout the run, it's more just so you as a runner can keep track of, like, you know, where you improved or where you need to improve or things like that. So the next split that we can see here is Namek history. But before that, we actually have some things that we need to do. This will basically set up the rest of the run for us. So now that we've done Saiyan history, we'll be asked to go and travel to these miniature time rifts, 5 in total. And it's significant that there are 5 because they're basically one for each of the races, and this is where you would unlock your race-specific transformation. So first we're going into the Frieza spaceship, and then we have Majin Buu's house, and then Guru's house, and then Capsule Corporation, and then Hercule's house. And that's for the Frieza race, the Majin race, the Namekian race, the Saiyan race, and the Earthling race. So right now we're just tasked with going into each of these time rifts and talking to, like, the quintuplets or whatever. These guys that are waving to us. But because I want to get an early transformation, I'm actually going to step inside Majin Buu's house as well and chat with him. I learned recently that once you talk to him, NPCs will spawn on the map that will, if you talk to them, give you food. I knew that there were NPCs that gave you food, but I didn't realize until recently, like within this last week or two, that talking to Majin Buu in his house was the trigger for them to appear on the map. So I stop in there, I talk to him to trigger them to appear, and then I continue on to activate, or not to activate, but to go into the rest of these miniature time rifts and talk to the quintuplets that I need to. Once we're finished at Hercule's house, though, we'll start into the next bit. And what that is from Hercule's house, like the rift, like the platform that's hovering in the air, this thing that I'm standing on right now, but for Hercule's house. If you get in your vehicle and dive off like the front right side of that, you can land right in front of an NPC named Jija. So you'll see him soon, but just to talk about him now, Jija hates bitter people. And so if you do the anguish emote, he'll freak out and he'll give you clothes. And those clothes, the set of clothing rather, it's 4 pieces of clothing for 20,000 zeni each, as in you can sell them for 20,000 zeni each, for a total of 80,000 zeni. And so what we do is we get those clothes, we sell them all, and then we use almost all of that money to purchase levels from Tosak, and that brings us to about level 38 typically. So here I jump in my vehicle, I fly down, you can see Jija's name down there. There we go. So talk to him to initiate it, open up your emote menu, anguish, and there you go, we got the clothing. So we'll go sell that. And so this is the biggest like mass leveling that we do in this run. And I was actually talking to Hatlord recently, as in yesterday at the time of recording this. Okay, speaking of Hatlord actually, so first, usually I go to the skill shop to sell these, but instead I went here to the item shop because Hatlord pointed out to me in my last premiere when I got, when I improved the console world record for this game, for new game category, that I was missing some secret tech, and that was the limit burst. Something that was somewhat recently added to Xenoverse 2, like it's been a thing for a while, but it's one of the newer things, technically, is that Super Souls now come with limit bursts. And it depends on what, like on the Super Soul for what the limit burst is. So I picked up one of Yamcha's Super Souls, like Get Lost Before I Send You Flying or something like that. Not because of its inherent effect. I honestly couldn't tell you what it is. I think it might strengthen like Charged Ki Blast or something, but I don't know. I don't use it for that effect. But if you hold down like your right control stick, at least if you're using an Xbox One controller, I assume it's the same for like PlayStation or whatnot. But if you hold down the right control stick, it'll activate Limit Burst, which can only be used once per fight, but it gives you, again, a different boost depending on the Super Soul itself. So this one gives me an attack increase. It lasts for about 19 seconds of actual movement. And so, you have to be careful of when you choose to use it, but especially for these fights early on, it can make a big difference just in terms of like how quickly you can beat an enemy. Later on, it can get a little bit more difficult just because the enemies are more responsive to you. They vanish more, they use evasives more, they get you in combos more, they counter more. And so, it's harder to make good use of the time that the limit burst, is active. But yeah. So after purchasing all those levels from Tosak, we go in, we put in all our attribute points, we boost basic attacks to 100 because we really want to make use of the infinite combo, and then I put the rest into Strike Super so that my Meteor Crash is more powerful. I put on some battle items so I have some healing just for in case, because, it's better to take the time to equip those than to die at some point in the run. And then before I forget, I go into my equipment and I put on that Super Soul so that I can use it to, increase my attack for those 19 seconds. But as I was saying, yesterday I was talking to Hatlord, and he mentioned that we might be splitting the board again into like an any percent new game Tosak run and no Tosak run. And I think that makes sense. So first, I'm still proud that I was able to find the Tosak strats. I think that they really contributed, obviously, to decreasing the time that you could do a new game run in, and just making it easier in general, because you get to be over-leveled for a lot of these fights, whereas, in a normal playthrough, you would be able to, do parallel quests or redo missions in order to increase your level more organically, whereas here we just purchase them to really, really rush it out. But I think it would be cool to have a split between like Tosok runs and no Tosok runs, just so people could experiment with, all right, well, what if I didn't need this money for Tosok? What if I could use this money for other things? What if I want to show off specifically how good I am, even when I'm level, you know, like 9 when I'm supposed to be level 20. Like, I don't know what level you are in the run. I've used Tosok methods for so long that I just don't recall. But I think that that could be cool. So we'll see if it actually happens. So something else that you might be seeing, like especially right here, that I haven't talked about yet. When I'm just waiting for dialogue to pass, like when I've already gotten the enemy's health down enough and there's basically nothing else to do, you might see that I spam my basic Ki Blast or that I try to like grab them and throw them. If you hit an enemy with, I think, 20 normal Ki Blasts, when the score is being calculated, you'll get the Ki Blaster, like, title. It doesn't tell you how much, like, how many points each of those titles are worth, but you get the Ki Blaster title. And if you grab someone 3 times, you get the Grappler title. And your score in this game is equivalent to your experience. So the higher score you get, you know, the more experience you're getting, and the earlier you are to level up kind of thing. So with that fight, the start of this was awkward. I didn't realize that I'd untargeted Dodoria on accident. So it took a little bit longer than I would have liked, just because it took some time for me to realize that I'd untargeted him, to retarget him, and then to connect. But usually what I would have to do there, I believe, is 2 full combos and then like another couple hits and then a full Meteor Crash to finish him off. Whereas when I activate the Super Soul to use my Limit Burst to boost my attack, it just takes 1 full combo and then my Meteor Crash. So it's pretty cool. I actually went into the training, like, just the offline training rooms to fight an NPC because it shows you like how much damage your attacks or combos will do. And I was pleasantly surprised by how much the Limit Burst actually increased your damage. Like, I believe it did more for my damage than boosting basic attacks from 0 to 100 as far as attribute points are concerned. So Limit Bursts actually were pretty significant. But yes, in this point of the story, Supreme Kai of Time pulls you out of the Time Nest to tell you, like, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 sold over 10 million copies. Here's some commemorative glasses. Cool. Since she's already pulling me out to this particular area, like at the foot of the stairs, I take the time to get in my vehicle and go and do the 2 Raditz fights so that I can get 2 of the TP medals that I need. Because his fights are really rather quick. And, you know, I'm going to need 2 TP medals from someplace, so I might as well get them from him. So with this next one, even though Nappa and Raditz are both in this fight, and you start default targeting Raditz, or Nappa, just switch immediately to Raditz, do 2 full combos, and then hit him with your special, and there you go. I say special, I mean like your super skill that he's trying to teach you.
Jeez.
So now at this point, I have 5 TP medals, and so all I need to do is wait for Yamcha to have his special class, the Turtle Stone Hunt, and then hope I get 10 TP medals from that. But now that we're done with the Raditz stuff, we pop in the vehicle, go over here to the offline battle mode, whatever. We immediately load into a lobby just as quickly as we can, and then we immediately back out of it, so I'm just spamming B. And what this does is it reloads the hub in such a way that it triggers the next cutscene. So basically, if I hadn't done that, then after I did the Ginyu Force split, we would be seeing this cutscene here. And so what this does, in my mind, is instead of it pulling me out of the Time Nest at a time that was less, you know, less ideal for me, less efficient, while I'm already down there in the Recreation Plaza area, or by like the time mission, I don't remember what the first one's called, but you know, where you can do like parallel quests and such, we might as well just trigger the cutscene while we're there so that we can stay in the Time Nest longer and immediately jump from the Ginyu Force split to the Frieza Saga split without having to, you know, re-travel up the stairs and through the portal, etc. So yes, thanks once again to Hatlord for suggesting the Limit Burst idea with Super Souls. I had hardly even considered it before because I was like, I was aware of Limit Burst and that, you know, they could do like attack up and that kind of thing. I was not aware of how large the boost was, like how significant the attack up actually was. And I didn't think that the time limit of, like, again, I thought it was like more 10, 15 seconds. But even so, I didn't think that it would be enough. But when you want a lot of these fights to go by quickly anyway, if you can get good combos off, like if you can connect with the enemy when you want to and then keep that connection going, like if you can keep fighting them, the damage boost really can add up really quickly. So thank you, Hatlord, for that suggestion. So with this one, you can see they're invincible at this point in health. And we just have to wait for dialogue to pass. It'll basically be once Elder Kai is saying that Goku always swooping in and having all the fun for himself. Once Elder Kai is finished with that line, then these two will be vulnerable again. And at that point, we only have to finish off one of them. They won't actually even become KO'd. They'll just be down to a sliver of health. And then Supreme Kai of Time will jump in and say, wait a minute. And then it's just a matter of time from that point until the scene transitions to the next fight. So as soon as we got Birder down to that sliver of health, Supreme Kai jumped in, interrupting Goku's line, and basically triggering the dialogue that we need in order to move on. With this phase, once again, you only need to beat one of them. They'll actually become knocked out, but as soon as you knock one of them out, Goku will start with another line of right there. Wait, someone's coming this way. You don't have to do anything to Jace at this point, but I figure I might as well. Something else that you might notice throughout the course of this playthrough, I say whatever, it's a speed, but you know, it's still technically a playthrough of the game, is some fights, they move on from like one fight to the next, like just a smooth transition with a bit of loading, and other fights have like a screen that shows you your score. If it shows you your score before you move on to the next mission, then you're going to be moving on with a clean slate. So you'll be at full health and full stamina, but 0 bars of ki. Likewise, your enemies will be, you know, the same, typically. If the scene just transitions with like a bit of loading in between it, then you'll be carrying over like whatever health you had remaining, whatever ki you had remaining, whatever stamina you had remaining. With the health and stamina, that one's a little bit scarier because obviously the lower health or the lower stamina you are, the riskier it can be. But because you maintain your ki, if you're careful with it, like if you just have good ki management basically, you can immediately start with like a meteor crash or immediately start with a transformation or something that would benefit you, you know, in order to make the fight go as quickly as possible. So what you might have noticed in that last one is that, you know, both Jace and Ginyu were immune after a certain point. And at this point, Jace is, you can obviously KO Jace. Ginyu is actually still vulnerable until Trunks, you know, in Ginyu's body has the line, well, this is awkward. Like once he says that, then we can finish off Ginyu. As soon as Ginyu's finished off, and as soon as he finishes the line, like the fabulous Jace lost, how can this be? Then the scene will transition to the final fight, where we need to fight Ginyu in Goku's body and the newly arrived Turles. With them, thankfully, there's no limit to the dialogue, or as in, you're not held back by that. You just have to beat both Ginyu and Turles as quickly as possible, and once they're dead, you get to move on to the next bit. Something that I was concerned about with Limit Burst was I thought that you would only be able to activate it once, like per every score screen, basically. But no, even when the scene just transitions like this, and again your health, stamina, and ki carry over, you actually are able to Limit Burst again. And so that's definitely nice. You can see very quickly I'm able to take out the two of them because of the ki that I had remaining, so I was able to do like Meteor Crash right away, and because of the Limit Burst that I was able to activate, you know, right from the start. But yeah, with the Ginyu Force done, We can just... Oh! Well, normally we could just immediately go in and do the Frieza saga, but when you're doing this run, if Yamcha shows up for his special class, or if you get that notification that he's hosting it, you need to drop whatever you're doing and go and take that, because there is no guarantee over the course of this run that Yamcha will have his special class ever. I've had runs where, you know, after 2 hours, he still never hosted a single class, and I've had runs where he had 4 or 5 classes. So when he throws it, you're hoping that he throws one on this island. There I found one, so that was really fortunate for me. If you do not have a stone on the island, which you can tell they're just the little blue glowies, I mean, typically the blue glowies just represent any item you can pick up on the ground, but they also are turtle stones, or potentially turtle stones, when you're doing a special class. But if he throws it somewhere that's not that Resort District Island, you're basically guaranteed to not get 10 TP medals, which usually for a personal best run means that you've lost. Like, you can still get a good time, but you're probably not going to get a personal best unless your previous best, you know, also didn't get 10 TP medals from Yamcha. So Yamcha is, like, the Turtlestone hunt saved a ton of time in terms of just otherwise what you'd have to do to get all the required TP medals. And of course, Nail has to ruin that combo just by using a simple grab. But Yamcha now is also like the biggest run killer, just because if he doesn't show up to do his special class, you have to do 10 extra missions to get the, you know, required TP medals. So it can be really rough. With this fight, something you might have noticed is that we just had to get Frieza's health down to that first parenthesis. Once we got it down to that, Frieza said, "This will be your final warning." It interrupted whatever dialogue was happening before that point, and it started this chain of dialogue, which, to my knowledge, cannot be further skipped or sped up or anything like that. But at this point, it's just a matter of time. We just have to wait for this dialogue to end, and then the scene will transition, and we'll unfortunately move away from Frieza in the Frieza saga and be focusing for quite a while on Turles and Slug. And this split, this Frieza Saga split, is arguably my least favorite split in the run. Because first, the Frieza Cooler fight that ends the split can be really hard and scary. Like, it's definitely killed runs for me. And just killed, you know, me, the character in general. But also the Turles Slug parts, I don't love them as characters. And there's so much dialogue that you just have to wait for. It's just really obnoxious. And again, so far we found no way to skip or to shorten those bits of dialogue in particular. So you just have to wait it out. Basically what we do is we'll just have to weaken both Turles and Slug as much as we can, which is quite a bit. You know, it's like to the middle of their names, basically. But then at that point, there's no need to keep fighting them, aside from just if they're attacking you, you keep fighting just to keep them from dealing damage to you. Because another thing that's really obnoxious about this split, or these like chunks of fights, these sets of fights, is that, like I mentioned earlier, where your health key and stamina carry over. And so these parts, you know, Turles and Slug are invincible for so long because so much dialogue needs to pass, but you're not invincible. They can still hurt you just as badly as ever. And so then, when there's so much time for them to beat on you, when you can't really do anything to defend yourself aside from beat on them in return, and then the next fight, like, it begins with you having the same amount of health that you left off at, it can be really punishing for new players in particular, whether new players to the run or just in general new players of the game. I personally think that it's unfair how when the NPC is invincible, you are not. In part because they perfectly well have the capability to make you invincible whenever they are. Because the one instance where that actually does happen is in the final battle. The final battle is against Mira, who we'll see, you know, a few times throughout this run. And that final battle has 3 different phases. The first phase, Toa talks for forever, and it sucks. But once you get Mira down to a certain point of health, both you and him are invincible. And so, like, obviously it's possible to make you, the player character, invincible as well. But they just chose not to do it except for that very final fight. And when, you know, it can be so punishing in that, again, Lord Slug and Turles are invincible here, but you're not, but they can still keep wailing on you. And then the next fight, you're at the same amount of health that you ended up with here. It's just not right in my mind, but there's nothing you can do about it. I think it's a flaw in the game, but yeah, I'm just pointing that out because, like, frankly, there's nothing else to talk about at this point. I just let them beat on Kid Gohan if I can. But anyway, Lord Slug is finally saying this line, I feel a surge of pure dark energy. Once he finishes that line, they're both vulnerable, and so I send out one, you know, consecutive energy blast, then I send out another one. Unfortunately, Lord Slug didn't quite die from it, just like one of the ki blasts must have missed, or something like that. Also, when I was doing this run, I was doing it without game audio, and so, you know, I didn't technically have the audio cue of Lord Slug actually finishing that line to go off of. I just had to try to hear it in my head, and obviously enough, I heard it a little bit wrong. So with this fight in particular, you need to get them down, or one of them down to a certain point of health, and that'll trigger Trunks to, like, begin dialogue, and then he'll come to you, like, to help you. And then this next bit, Turles and Slug have the same amount of health that they do here, so the lower you get the two of them, the better, because at this point, we just need to finish them off. So we'll finish off Turles with one more hit there, activate our Limit Burst, which maybe we should have done at the start, and then just finish him off as quickly as we can. He's very annoying with his evasives because he should have already been dead, but there he goes. And thankfully, that's the last that we see of Turles and Slug for the remainder of this run. Obviously, if you're playing the game casually, you can go and pick them up as, you know, an instructor, fight them more in parallel quests or whatnot. But for the purposes of this run, they no longer exist, which is quite nice. Now for the Frieza saga, we actually get to return to Frieza, and this fight in particular that we're moving into is the most unique fight in the game, in my opinion. So if you're to actually check, like, the win objective for this fight, it says to reduce Frieza to a certain amount of health, and that's technically true. After enough dialogue passes, the fight will move on, like, the scene will transition to the next phase, but the real way, if you want to beat this fight quickly, is to basically not do anything, but let Frieza kill Vegeta. As soon as Vegeta is KO'd, more or less, the scene will transition. There are some exceptions where if Frieza's getting really ganged up on, or if I see Frieza focusing on, like, you know, Piccolo, Krillin, or Gohan, I'll swoop in just to knock him away in hopes that Vegeta will fly in and, you know, seize his attention. But here we can see Vegeta is dead. We'll finish this line, hear just a bit of Piccolo's, and then it moves on. Now, the rest of these fights, up until the Frieza Cooler fight, are really just beat Frieza down to a certain point of health as quickly as possible, whether because that will instantly move the scene on, like in this case here, or in this case here, because it will trigger Goku to start the scene transitioning dialogue, basically. Once Goku says the Frieza, can I ask you to do something, then it's just a matter of time for the fight to move on. With this phase, following this particular phase, you really hardly have to get Frieza's health down. It's almost like this phase shouldn't have been a thing. Because, like, I'll just try to connect with Meteor Crash, we get him down to the O and R, and then that fight's over. It's like, why did they even have that phase of the fight? It should have just been mixed with the previous one, but whatever. As we saw there, though, we had a score screen, which this means that now we're starting with a blank slate. So again, full health, full stamina, but 0 ki. And similarly, Frieza is also, you know, clean slate. So we activate our Limit Burst, because here we just need to kill him as quickly as possible. As soon as we get him down low enough, the scene will transition. So right there, there we go. Now we're moving on to what, in my opinion, is the scariest fight in the first half of the run, at least. I was going to say the scariest fight in the run, but I've been having a lot of bad luck with some of the later fights recently. But this one can be really punishing. And again, I should point out that I'm like 20 levels over-leveled because of using Tosag. And still, this fight can be really hard. So we use the Limit Burst in order to, you know, make our attacks stronger, because we just need to get either Frieza or Cooler down to about that point of health, and then the scene will transition. They'll turn into, you know, Frieza full power, and I don't know, cooler powered up. What is it? Final form, cooler final form, which is a lie because then he has metal cooler, of course. But now you just need to kill both of them as quickly as possible, which frankly, easier said than done. These two can be really punishing, especially if they decide to gang up on you, which they very often do. Like, I wonder if that's something specifically about their AI together. But it can be really hard. They're also just they're fast individuals, and so they're good at dodging, at vanishing away, at countering, at using evasives, you know, things like that. I guess I say countering, but that's often the same as using evasives. But thankfully, we're able to finish off Cooler, so now it's just Frieza. The fight's still not over, obviously, but not having to worry about them ganging up can be a big thing. So thankfully there, he started using his ultimate in a place where we were able to counter him. If someone's using their ultimate and you hit them with a fully charged heavy attack, it not only cancels the ultimate, but it breaks their stamina. And the big weakness of the infinite combo for Majin females is either vanishing or using evasives, which the enemy can only do if they have 2 blocks of stamina to begin with. So it's really nice when an opponent uses an ultimate in a way and an ultimate that you can counter like that. There was another way that I broke an ultimate too, you might have seen. For that, I hit AX and then A again, and I basically end up flying up and around behind them and just kicking them. Once we've beaten the Frieza split, which we just did, we have the ability to fly, but we pop in our vehicle, drop down here. He says, "Vehicles are cool, don't you think?" I say, "Yeah, I think so." He's like, "Nice," and he gives us this outfit. And this is like, it's a really good outfit. It's 4 pieces, each of them worth 32,500, and so it's quite a bit of zenny. Now, I sold them at the skill shop, which is unusual for me. Usually I'd sell them at the item shop, and I don't know. It was more of a mistake than anything else, but we buy the Super Key Explosion Ultimate Attack while we're there, and now we're buying 99 water. And this again is part of our transformation for the Majin race. Once we get that, we'll swoop around here, talk to this guy. He'll give us food. He only gave us 1 candy though, and candy is a 1-star food item. So we'll go over here, talk to this person. She gives us 3 pudding, which is a 3-star food item, and that's all we need. So now we can go to Majin Buu's house, talk to him. Basically what we'll need to do is we'll need to give him 34 water, and then 31 water and 2 pudding. So with this 34 water, and it stops you when you can't give him any more food to fill like that particular instance of the bar, which is nice, so you never have to worry about like giving him too much by mistake. Like you can just hold right until, you know, it stops you, and then, you know, hit yes. So that's nice. So I mentioned earlier that you need to give him 104 stars worth of... 102 stars worth of food. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, because I'm pretty sure you need to give him 2 pudding. Yeah. Whereas 1 pudding, I think, would have been enough. Because all the water was 99. And then, yeah, 1 pudding would have been 102. So, it's hard to say. But that's a good, it's at least a good measurement to adhere to as far as just how to remember it. But yeah. With this one, we'll need to kill Majin Buu is not kill him, but get him down to a little above half health of his single bar. So right now you can see that he has like a light yellow bar on top of an orange bar of health. Each full bar of health consists of 10,000 HP. So first, at the beginning of the game, you'll notice people just have like smaller health bars, and it'll extend the more health they get. But once it reaches 10,000, instead of extending, like becoming a longer health bar, you'll get like a different color on top of it. So it starts with that like orange, and then it becomes that light yellow, and then like a yellow-green, and then a green, and then a blue, you know, like that kind of thing. So yeah, once Majin Buu said, "You're going to die," you know, we were just waiting for it to let us transform. We have to finish Majin Buu off, and then he jumps back up, he's full health again, and there are 3 small Majin Buu. We have to beat all 4 of them now in order to move on. So I use my Limit Burst, and I'm trying to get in as much damage as possible, you know, during, again, those 19 seconds where I have use of the Limit Burst. Unfortunately, they don't always cooperate with that. So thankfully, we were able to finish off Majin Buu at least before it vanished, but then it poofed like immediately afterward. So as nice as it would have been, oh well. With the Majin Buu, like the small Majin Buus, which you can tell just by the parenthetical small on their name, and in part by their size, of course, we'll have to do two full combos of this, like our just heavy attack spam, and then 1 Pearl Flash will finish them off. I believe if you have Limit Burst active, it's just 1 full combo and 1 Pearl Flash. So it can definitely be useful to have that, your Limit Burst active, but it's one of those things that's just kind of easier said than done.
Jeez, how strong do you have to get before you're...
While skill is absolutely a part of this game, like, so is luck, because you just can't... You can't really manipulate the enemies all that well into doing what you want them to do. You kind of just have to be reactive. And yeah. So Yamcha's special class appeared, but in the current stage of the run, I say that because in the past you used to have to do 2 Yamcha classes and get 10 TP medals from him each time. In this current iteration of the run, you only have to do his class the 1 time. And so if his class pops up again after that, you just ignore it. Like, frankly, you only want him to pop up at 1 point in the run. Because every other time he pops up, like, you know, that's another small thing to load and another text box to click through and whatnot. It's obviously not a huge deal, but it's technically something more. So we need to equip our Super Key Explosion and our Transformation, and then we're good to move on to the next split. Something that you can do, and that I'm kind of debating doing, but I don't know whether it's, like, worthwhile or not, is after you leave Majin Buu's house and you're on his rift, if you jump in your vehicle and just, like, dive straight off, basically, you'll be heading toward Fu with, like, the Crystal Raid battles, you know, giant purple-pink cloud. And so you can talk to him then so that he won't, you know, take you out of the time nest after this fight, or after these string of fights. But I don't know if that's actually worth doing, is the thing. So for this particular run, I didn't try that. With these 3 fights, it's a matter of just get them down to a certain amount of health, and in some instances, wait for like a little bit more dialogue to pass. So Limit Burst is helpful here. You know, we just want to connect as quickly as possible, get him down to a sliver of health. Android 16's a butt, but at least we have our long-range consecutive energy blast, which, again, you know, I specifically picked the hybrid option so that I had that super skill as an option, just for those moments where it wasn't as efficient for me to, you know, charge toward them and make contact again. But yes, because we did not talk to Fu before, he's going to show up now to tell us about Crystal Raid battles. So you can get it out of the way early, but I don't know if it's worth getting it out of the way early, just because he himself is a little bit out of the way. And so you'd have to travel to him, talk to him, and then, you know, like, fly back into the time nest. Whereas here, he at least pulls you out of the time nest immediately to himself and, you know, begins the dialogue. So, difficult to say. But that's all we needed to do, just talk to him, we'll fly back into the time nest and resume the Cell Saga. We've got our Mira fight, and then we've got 2 sets of 3 Cell Junior fights. And then we have 8 Metal Coolers, 10 Metal Coolers, 12 Metal Coolers, and then a final fight against Cell himself. So recently I realized 2 things, or rather, so similar to beginning of the run with the Saiyan history split, with Nappa and Turles, if you beat them quickly enough, you get to skip a chunk of dialogue. I realized that was the case for this Mira fight and with the first 3 Cell Junior fight. I don't know the specifics though, as well as I do with the Nappa Turles. I just know that there is a dialogue skip. So if we get Mira down quickly enough to where Goku says, "I give up," right there, we get to skip a chunk of dialogue. And so you'll see at the end of this fight, dialogue will, like, it'll begin, but then be immediately interrupted. So you see Supreme Kai of Time will start talking after Mira's bit. Yeah, see, Cell and Goku are fighting, but her line is just completely interrupted, and we get to move on. I think when I timed that, it was about, like, 24 seconds. And I think it's about the same time save, actually, for this next dialogue skip, too. And again, I'm not sure the specifics of, like, what exactly you have to do, but I know by when, at least. Tien and Yamcha will, like, comment on how strong I am and say, like, you know, whoever you are, thanks, or whatever. I think by that point, you need to have killed 2 Cell Juniors. But again, I'm not sure what the requirement really is. Thankfully, with Limit Burst, I can kill 1 Cell Junior, like, per heavy attack combo that I do. So I activate it, I use the AX charge, and then vanish to immediately get behind them and initiate a combo. But see here, you're really strong. I owe you one, whoever you are. And then we get Android 16 saying, I have a request for you. The reason I didn't know about this skip is because I usually got the skip without trying. But there was one run where I didn't get the skip. And then Gohan started talking about, like, how he knew he had, you know, the power, but he didn't know how to, like, access it or whatever. And I was like, oh, I've heard that dialogue before, but I never realized that I haven't heard it in a long time. But that itself, like, takes 25 seconds, you know, for Gohan to finish talking. So, yeah, technically this split also has 2 dialogue skips. And it does make me wonder, like, what other fights in the run I might have missed when I was initially testing the fights to see which ones had skips. But yeah. The sad thing, of course, is that I had been hoping that there would be, like, a dialogue skip for this fight discovered, because I hate how long Android 16, Gohan, and Hercule talk. But, like, this is after the dialogue skip. So, like, it's still forever long to me, but it was originally forever-er. But anyway, this next bit is a clean slate, so we carry over our ki, etc. So what I do is I immediately use Super Ki Explosion, because it doesn't always happen this way, but there have been times, like, it's possible to kill all 3 Cell Juniors immediately with your Super Ki Explosion. We killed one of them at least, which is good enough. But we still need to finish off the other 2. The unfortunate thing about using Super Ki Explosion right at the beginning is I believe it also hits Cell. And the issue with that is that that makes him more likely to target you. So while you're trying to fly around and, you know, finish off the 3 Cell Juniors, which is all you have to do in order to move on to the next fight, he's then trying to fight you. And so, you know, he'll knock you away, he'll interrupt you with Ki Blast, he'll get you in a Kamehameha, that kind of thing. It's annoying. But here begins the first of the 3 Metal Cooler fights. So I Limit Burst just because I can, basically. You know, it makes it so, like, they're already pretty weak. You can see, like, they only have 1 bar of health, and it's really rather low. And I believe their defense is just low, too, because my attacks seem to do quite a bit of damage. But, you know, having Limit Burst active just means, you know, I can kill them in even fewer attacks. Which should mean, you know, I can move immediately on to the next Metal Cooler and just try to beat them all as quickly as possible. I try not to use Ki at this point, because similar to the last fight, or, you know, like, from moving into the 3 Cell Juniors to the other 3 Cell Juniors, you get to keep your Ki moving into this fight, and I really want to use Super Ki Explosion to take out as many as I can. I didn't do as well this time, but in the past, I've been able to take out 6 in this first hit. I mean, I took out 5, which is still really good, but you can see how important that can be, because right at the beginning, you know, we took out 5 of the 10 that we were supposed to kill. And that's really cool. So obviously with the Limit Burst, we get an attack up, but something else that I haven't mentioned is that we also get some gradual just ki, like, auto-replenishing. There is a much better way to say that. I guess just auto ki regeneration or something. Ki recovery, there we go. I think it's auto ki recovery. It's not a ton, but it's something. And so, same thing here. We have the ki that we ended off with last time, so I'm going to try to capture as many as I can. So I try to move a little closer to the Metal Coolers and a little closer to where I last saw Trunks. It didn't quite work out there. We only managed to get 2 of them, but that's okay. Here we're using Limit Burst again just to get some of that automatic key recovery and to make it so that we don't have to do quite as many attacks on the metal coolers, just to make it a little bit faster if possible. So I try to move again closer to Trunks and to the remaining metal coolers, use my Super Key Explosion, help to finish off 4 of them, and so that's something. This fight in particular, this 12 metal cooler fight, it certainly could have gone better. It has gone better for me in the past for sure, but it wasn't bad. So the last fight of the split is we need to finish off Cell. So you're fighting alongside Super Saiyan, you know, Teen Gohan. So right now, you know, first I want to damage him, obviously, just to reduce his health, but I'm also really hoping to get my ki up to at least 3 bars as quickly as possible. With 3 bars of ki, the Majin can use their transformation, you know, purification. And so, like, while I still have the combo going, like, I kept attacking him, but now I'm going to use purification, basically become Kid Buu, activate my Limit Burst, and then just be doing as much damage to him as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, Gohan was interrupting me a little bit, but I think after this point, I was able to focus pretty exclusively. So we just quickly finish off Cell there. And we get to mark our split, saving 11 seconds so far, or so it looks. Sometimes these splits can be difficult to read in that you never know at what point in the run, you know, if ever, Yamcha is going to appear to have his special class, right? And, you know, sometimes he can appear when you're, like, out in the recreational hub. Sometimes he can appear when you're in the time nest. Like, if he appears when you're in the recreational hub, or in the recreation hub, I guess. It's Recreation Plaza, what am I saying? It's faster, because you don't have to go through that, like, the walk from Elder Kai or Trunks, whoever's giving out the mission at the time, to the portal, and then the portal itself takes some time to get through. If you're already in the Recreation Plaza, you can just immediately go to a transfer shop clerk, go to the resort district, etc. And so even when he appears can make a difference as far as how much time you're saving. But the point I was making initially was just doing his special class obviously takes some time, and so you can't rely too heavily on your splits, like, you know, when it says, like, you know, plus or minus, until you have passed the 15 TP medal split, because it's at that point where it's required that you have at least the 15 TP medals. With that last fight against Android 16, it was just a matter of beating him as quickly as possible. As soon as you did, you moved on to this fight. But with this one, you get Mira down to a certain point of health, and then he's invincible, and you just have to wait for Trunks to be angsty enough that he jumps in to try to save Gohan.
Who is this guy? How is he so strong? You fool. I'll put you out of your misery very soon.
Once again, like, we currently don't know of a way to skip this dialogue or to speed it up at all, as is the case with all of the other bits of dialogue I've sat through at this point. So yeah, but now that we've transitioned, Mira is once again vulnerable, so we'll connect, finish him off as quickly as we can, and there we go. Now it might seem like this split should be over, because, you know, we get these cutscenes and we get to move back to the time nest, but what we actually want to do is just immediately talk to Elder Kai again. We have basically 2 more fights of this split, which is unfortunate because it would be great to save like 3 minutes here. But, you know, these fights are unavoidable. So now alongside Trunks, we'll be fighting Android 16. He shouldn't be too bad on his own. The worst part is just when Trunks tends to knock him around and away from you. But I believe we're going to just immediately use our Limit Burst and then try to deal as much damage as possible. He tends to be rather squishy at this point in the run, And so that's nice. You can see that was one combo and he's almost dead. There we go. Now he's actually dead. And now we move on to Android 16 and Cell on a team fighting me and Trunks. Once again, I'll use Limit Burst right away, in hopes of just dealing as much damage as quickly as I can. You don't have to worry about the dialogue here. There's nothing restricting you in that regard. You just want to beat them both as quickly as you can. While I still have Limit Burst active, I'm trying to deal as much damage as possible. So I immediately go into Meteor Crash. But now we still have to finish off some of his health. Thankfully, he's pretty squishy at this point in the run too. It almost seems to me like you're supposed to do Android 16, like this split's worth of fights before the Cell Saga split's worth of fights. But I don't know. I mean, it's listed in the second position, so it's hard to say. That could mean nothing, that could mean everything, but they just seem squishier than the other opponents. Either way, we're done with all the fights for that split, so I've already marked it on the clear. We have to talk to Elder Kai one more time just to skip through a couple cutscenes, and then we'll be pulled out immediately by Supreme Kai of Time, so that she can introduce us to expert missions. We'll have to do 2 expert mission tutorials, which are basically just to show you, 2 ways that expert missions can be done. The first with, Great Abe, and the second with, I don't know if supervillain is the correct term, but it's just some dude, but they're like way stronger than normal. And with the Great Apes, you have being brainwashed, how you can unbrainwash yourself, basically, and how you can unbrainwash someone else. And then the gigantic key ball, which we'll see, because unfortunately it didn't go too well for me this time. Even though usually the gigantic key ball isn't a big deal, it was for me in this instance, and I'll explain why once that comes up. And then with the supervillain one, you have to deal with being like banished basically to another dimension where you just have to fight some enemy or like set of enemies, and then a portal will appear. And then it shows you how to break other people out of that in case like they didn't beat the enemies fast enough. So with this one, yeah, we're connecting with Meteor Crash as quickly as possible because thankfully the Shadow You doesn't have a lot of health. You can be bullied a little bit by them blocking or countering you or the like, but usually that's not too bad. With this one, you're supposed to hit them, but Sage of Keyblades and Lord Pixel pointed out to me that if you let them be brainwashed, it'll just jump to the next part where you're supposed to knock them out of being brainwashed. Unfortunately, Nappa being there interrupted my whole vanish combo, but thankfully Johnny wasn't able to connect with me because these guys can really bully me. But this is where using the Super Soul for the sake of the Limit Burst becomes problematic. So usually what I would do is I would just have a Ki Blast charged and I would send it at that ball. It would be a bomb Ki Blast, and it would instantly send it back. This time I sent out my charged homing Ki Blast, but that didn't do enough. And then I was like, alright, I'll just finish it off by spamming normal Ki Blast, and that didn't work. Then I tried another charged one, but by that point, the Ki Blast was close enough to me that I latched onto it, and it was just this whole mess of a situation. Like, it didn't take a ton of time, but for what it was, for the part that it did. You know what I mean? So I need to go in and figure out how I want to actually do that part of the expert mission. And frankly, it might be worth losing my Limit Burst just for the expert mission, and then, I would equip it again afterward, so that I could do the bomb Ki Blast strategy, uninhibited. Either that, or I just need to figure out how to do it with, essentially the same efficiency using this homing Ki Blast, or, even if not using the Ki Blast itself, just how else to do it, more or less as quickly. So yeah, with that one, it's easy enough to get off just one consecutive energy blast and finish off that Cyberman. As soon as we do, that portal appears. And so now is the part where you're needing to destroy the 2 black crystals that you see in order to bring back the rest of your teammates into this, into this dimension. You can see Turles there. He was like flying toward me for a moment. I was afraid he was going to interrupt, because oftentimes he'll just hit you with a few attacks and you have to ignore him and keep on going. But you save them, and now all together as a team, you target him and you unleash your attacks. And then I fall down and I pose for the camera and let him splat behind me in the background, because I think that's funny. But on the clear, I marked the split for the expert missions. We are done with those 2 tutorials, and we get to move on now to the Buu Saga split, which is what the BS stands for, in case anyone was curious. Before we move on to the Time Nest and start those fights, we do have to go back and talk to the Supreme Kai of Time. You can't do the next missions until you, like, basically check off that you've done the expert missions. But now we get to fly in. If at this point in the run, Yamcha had not appeared, you would basically have 2 more chances. One more chance during the Buu Saga split, and then 1 chance immediately afterward, at the point where you actually need the 15 TP medals. So if he hasn't shown up at this point in the run, you're basically praying that he does in these last 2 instances where it would be possible for him. Technically, if we return to the Time Nest more often, he would be given more opportunities to appear, but it's faster to just hit. So when you're on the scores, on the screen where it shows you your score, you have 2 options. You have next and return to the Time Nest. It's obviously faster to hit next and just immediately load into the next fight than to load back into the Time Nest, do whatever there, and then, and then load into the next mission. But if you wanted to increase the odds of Yamcha appearing, you would want to give him as many opportunities as possible, which is basically done by, making the hub reload in a particular way, similar to before, where we made the Hero Coliseum cutscene appear. So with this fight, you really only have to get Broly down, and then you're just waiting. I usually don't fight Vegeta at all, but I was bored this time, so I did. But you can see he became invincible pretty quickly too. Now the scene transitions. We have to finish off Broly, like fully KO him. And then once that happens, and so you're trying to connect, but unfortunately Broly bullied me here. It really shouldn't have taken as long as it did, but when I vanished and he just, turned around and punched me. You see, that's the sucky thing. It took 1 combo to finish him off, yet it took that long just because I couldn't even connect with him. But once he's KO'd, you need to get Majin Buu down to the point where Vegeta starts talking about how he's immortal, which he's totally not. But once that happens, it's just a matter of time. So you're trying to finish Majin Buu off as quickly as possible, basically. But he has some of the most annoying evasives. Like, turn into candy. It just turns you into a piece of candy where you cannot do anything but float around for like 5 whole seconds or something like that. Then he used 2 of these ultimates, which is really annoying because it has a pretty wide, like, cone of effect. The first time I thought that I was out of the way of it, but evidently I wasn't. So here, I know that his point where, Vegeta will have his dialogue is pretty close, so I'm just trying to finish it off with, my consecutive energy blast, but it still took some time. But here we go. Majin Buu said, time for you to go home, and now Vegeta's saying he's immortal. So now I know that I can just kind of relax. So I'm not really trying to fight him anymore. I'm like idly getting some hits in. My thought was like, if I got 3 bars of ki by the end of the fight, like I'd transform and use Quick Sleep just to regain some health, but it really doesn't matter. Because you're going to a score screen, which means that the next fight you do is going to be a clean slate anyway. So yeah. This would be the first instance where this is the only instance in the Buu Saga split where Yamcha might appear for his special class. And so, if you're still waiting for him, you'd be hoping for his message to pop up there, and when it didn't, you're just immediately going into the next fight, which is, you know, against Super Buu. And hoping that after the Buu Saga split, he would appear, because that's the last chance, unless you want to waste time by, you know, doing extra missions or other things to potentially spawn the Yamcha special class. So again, huge time save to get 10 TP medals from him instead of having to do 10 extra missions. But that does mean that if he doesn't appear, because it's purely a matter of RNG whether or not he does, and once he does appear, if he does, where he throws the Turtle Stone, which again determines how quickly you can get it and how many medals you'll get from it, it just makes him the biggest run killer too. With this fight, you just want to get Super Buu down to that sliver of health and then you can move on. That was really fast, in my opinion. So I was quite happy with that, just being able to activate Limit Burst and then keep him in a good combo for quite a bit. And then, you know, finish him off with Meteor Crash after that. With this part, you need to get Super Buu down, not dead, but basically almost a full bar of ki, or full bar of health from where he started at this point. It transitions, we have to kill Broly one more time, which sucks. He's not like my favorite to fight. He's usually not bad, but it's really obnoxious when he does, you know, just counter you in the perfect way, you know? So one more combo ought to do it. There we go. Once we've killed Broly, we're just waiting. We just need to get dialogue passed. So, you know, I transform because I had the key, and then I'm just gonna sleep so that I regain my ki and stamina and health. It doesn't matter because it's, you know, like the last, it's a clean slate moving into the next fight. But it's something you can do. Okay, now we're going into the last two fights of this split, and it's Janemba and then Janemba with Vegeta on your side. Which isn't really good, because then Vegeta, you know, he tends to be more of a hindrance than a help. But I'm activating Limit Burst, trying to connect with the combos quickly as I can and, like, you know, keep it going. But he was pretty Vanish happy. It didn't take a ton of time because I was able to reconnect immediately afterward. But the most powerful points of the Majin combo, I mean, the most powerful is like that spike down at the very end. So being interrupted from that and having to restart the combo, like, it's not ideal by any means. Still though, the two fights together certainly didn't take a long time there. We were able to get him down really quickly, and we marked our split. So yeah, you can see we did unfortunately lose time. I blame Broly. You know, that time where we really just needed one combo off on him, but he just kept hitting us and knocking us around. It took a lot more time than it should have. And then, you know, it's not like we finished off Majin Buu, you know, to the point where, again, Vegeta was saying, like, he's immortal. We didn't do that super quickly either, so we lost time, which wasn't great, but oh well. Since we already had the 15 TP medals, you saw I spammed through the text, and I moved on to the next mission and then marked my split. I didn't realize that he was using his ultimate at first, so I was just too slow to, you know, break it. Which would have been nice, because not only would I have saved some health for myself, but it would have meant his stamina would be broken, and I could get some good combos off on him without him being able to vanish or evasive away. Still though, being able to transform like this and have Limit Burst, I got some good combos off on him, which did a good bit of damage. And I'm still trying to get more, but my Limit Burst just ended. And so now we're not as strong. Vegeta's dead, so at the very least, he's not going to be interrupting this fight any longer, and Kid Buu should be focusing all of his efforts on us. He can technically go and fight Goku, but he typically doesn't. So once you get Kid Buu's health down to about the K in his name, Hercule will start talking, and that's what you really want, because it triggers, you know, the end dialogue, basically. We just need to finish, or have him finish talking, and then we're good. So I'm just spamming my Ki Blasts, which are, I shove my foot through a portal and kick him repeatedly. You can see the giant foot there. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's what it is.
It's here.
And we mark the split on the clear. So we are still losing some time, which is not great. I'll say right away too. Like, I'll admit that I still get confused, by the way, on terms of like losing and gaining time. Like, I have to clarify with people when they say that, like, in a good way or a bad way. Like, you know, if people say save time, like, I know what that means. Or if people say gained time, I know that's bad, you know? But like, yeah, anyway. So with this one, we have 3 fights. The Masked Saiyan fight here against Bardock, and then we move immediately into the Mira fight, and so we carry over, you know, again, health, stamina, ki. So I'll break his stamina here because he was ulting, and then I'm transforming and just immediately going into a fight. I do want to use my Limit Burst because obviously I'd be doing more damage, but I figured it was more worthwhile just to get as many combos in as I could with transformation while his stamina was broken, and then I used my Limit Burst afterward. At this point, we basically just want to connect one more time with a Pearl Flash. So there we go, finished him off. And now the third fight of this split is Beerus. We have our score screen here, so you know that we're going into the next fight with a clean slate. But this fight can be a little challenging. Beerus is one of those opponents that can be pretty quick to evade and counter you and things like that. And he's certainly not, like, weak either. And just looking at his health, too, he has a bit of a green bar of health. So you know that he has, like, you know, over 30,000 HP. Which, even for me, that number is really vague. Like, I just feel like I don't have a good point of reference. But it's technically a thing. So we fought him, you know, normally until we had 3 bars of ki and, you know, seemed in a good enough position to actually take the time to transform, and then we used our transformation. Just because here, pressing the heavy attack in purification form it's this sonic spin dash thing, which, you know, quickly brings you to the enemy and connects with them so that you can move immediately into your normal Y combo of actually punching them, you know? But beyond that, I think you inherently have like a 15% damage increase in your purified form. And so that's why, you know, in my recent runs, I've been trying to use it where I can. And why I really was pushing to get that early transformation. Because typically, before I was trying things this way, I was actually doing this split and then going and getting transformation. Because basically what I would do is, after the Kid Buu split, there's a Super Soul that's available for purchase in the shop. Like, I Hope You're Reborn as Someone Good This Time, I think is what it's called. And what it does is when you get the final blow on an enemy, it immediately refills your entire, you know, ki. Like, it refills all of it. And so you can just kind of move from super to super or ultimate to ultimate. As long as you keep getting kills, like, you can just keep using it. So that can be really helpful in this next fight. Because the first fight of the Golden Frieza split is you have to kill 15 of Frieza's minions, and they're not necessarily easy. They can be really challenging at times. And so normally, you know, when I went down to purchase that Super Soul, I would also purchase the food necessary to, you know, do the Majin transformation. But recently, I've been trying to forego having to leave the Time Nest to purchase that Super Soul. Because in your purified form, you know, where you look like Kid Buu, you can kill one of these guys in one full combo just as long as you can connect and get it off. So basically, as long as I can finish 15 combos, I figure, you know, that's one enemy of the 15 down. I feel like I said that wrong. As long as I can fulfill 15 combos, that's this fight finished. That's basically what I meant. The issue is that these guys can be really good at blocking at just the perfect time to ruin, you know, to ruin what you're going for. Without Limit Burst, you need to connect with the Sonic Spin Dash and then the full combo to the point where, like, I slam them down with both of my fists. If you just start with punching, like if you're close enough that you're just punching, you need to finish them off with the Pearl Dash. And this is assuming, of course, that they start off at full health. So just something that I have to keep in mind when I'm doing this part. And I do always still wonder if it would be better to, you know, get the Super Soul that replenishes my ki, or if it would be better to play as normal Majin female so that I could have access to Super Ki Explosion, you know, just for the times where they're clustered around me. The issue that I found is that they tend to be much more ready to use guard, which really renders Super Ki Explosion, like, useless. It does very little damage if they're actually guarding. And, you know, they just tend to do that pretty frequently. Whereas the Metal Coolers, you know, in the Cell Saga split, they did not guard really at all. Like, sometimes, but not to the same consistency that you see from these folk. You can see here just with the way that they can knock me out of my charge attack, the way that they'll spam me with Ki Blast, the way that they'll, you know, gang up on me when I'm fighting someone else. These guys can be really obnoxious. And I really don't like this part of the game. I've come to enjoy the Metal Cooler fight more with using Super Ki Explosion because it's fun to kill, like, so many with one attack. But I don't like that, the first part of the Golden Frieza split. I don't like the Golden Frieza split in general. The Golden Frieza Metal Cooler fight it's not fun to me. Like, it can be really hard just to connect because Goku and Vegeta are fighting alongside you, and they can just swoop in and knock them away, or, you know, blast them with, you know, little Ki Blast or something, just something to ruin your own combos. And then Frieza and Metal Cooler themselves, or Frieza and Cooler, I typically don't enjoy fighting because they tend to be, again, really responsive. Like, they dodge a lot, they vanish a lot, they counter a lot, they're just fast. But beyond that, we're going to be moving on from this fight to one with just Frieza, but after we get him down to, you know, after we get him down just a little bit of health, Cooler will join the fight. It'll be Golden Frieza and Metal Cooler. And after we beat them, we then have to skip a bunch of cutscenes and then do another Golden Frieza Metal Cooler fight. And it's like it's on the same map and you have the same allies and everything, and it's like, why do we just have to repeat this? You know, presumably the two are stronger than the first time you fight them, but I just still don't love it. So yeah. Either way, activating Limit Burst to do more damage, to try to get him down more quickly. We need to get him down just past, like, that first bar of health, basically. And now Cooler has joined the fight. We're using the ki that we gained from the last fight to immediately, you know, trigger our transformation. Because at least this way, when, like, Metal Cooler or Frieza either fly away or get knocked away, we're more likely to be able to, like, connect with them. So you see, I Limit Burst, and then I try to immediately connect with Cooler, but he, like, trolls me with a few Ki Blasts, which just ruins my momentum. It's really stupid. Then he knocks me away. So thankfully, we were able to break his stamina and connect with a few, like, a couple combos there. I wish it had been better, but at least he did die in the end. It just could have gone faster. Now Golden Frieza, same kind of thing. We just need to connect, finish him off. He doesn't have a lot of health left at this point, but he's a fighter. You know, he'll struggle. Whether he's hitting us with those, like, beams of ki or just knocking us away at the worst of times. Yeah.
This is all because of my training.
So as I said, this next fight is basically a repeat of what we just did. We just have to skip some cutscenes and then it'll begin. So to talk a little bit more about the beginning of this split, the Golden Frieza split, it's also really punishing. Like, not only are the 15 minions, like, rather difficult, even for someone who has, you know, at least some degree of experience, you know, with this game like I do, it can be challenging. Like, they themselves can just be hard to beat. But from there, you also then move on to that Frieza fight that's, you know, you have to wait for a certain dialogue to pass, and so Frieza will become invincible while you're not. If you die at any point during the 15 minion fight or during that first Frieza fight, you have to restart at the beginning of the minion fight. So it's just really punishing, and I don't like it. I haven't had to restart at that point, like, in a long time now. But, you know, I still think that it's dumb, and I sympathize with myself when I first started this run. or just playing the game in general, or, you know, other people who likewise have recently started, because it can be really challenging. And really disheartening, too, when you have to redo all of that.
This time, I'll make sure.
He has just that little bit of health, so I, you know, chose to target Frieza instead. And yeah, Goku finished Cooler off like immediately afterwards, so it worked. The angle where Golden Frieza's attack, that one where he just launches like that spam of ki beams, I think that it's a little weird, the hitbox of it, because I was to the side of him, I felt, and I was still getting hurt by the beams somehow.
I'm only here for Toa, but I suppose
Because, you know, like, when I see him using his ultimate, I'll try to move in and, like, break his ultimate, so it cancels it, and, you know, his stamina will be depleted. Yeah, stamina. But, it can be deceiving. But anyway, we finished that one. We marked our split on the clear. And I'm currently at, you know, minus 143. The run is looking pretty good. Like, it's definitely looking like a PB as long as I can keep this up. I do retain some bitterness because I had a better run that was unfortunately ended in, like, the worst way you could think, basically. But that's aside from the point. This is currently the world record for PC for this category, so, you know, I can't complain too much about it. But it can definitely be improved. Like, I just know that because I have almost improved it. Like, the run before this one was better, but whatever, someday. Now we need to fight Whis. And Whis can be fairly challenging too. Again, just he has good reaction times, and he knows how to dodge and counter and uses evasives, and he uses his ultimate at like the worst times for me over and over again. It can be pretty punishing. But, you know, I'm trying to avoid that. Once you weaken him to a certain point, Beerus will leave the fight. Like, right now he's fighting as my ally. But now that Whis has written on Beerus's head, Beerus will leave to, you know, wash it off. So it'll just be you and Whis. And I find that to be better, not having Beerus on my team. Because, yeah, sure, like, when he's here, Whis can focus on fighting him, but, like, that can be both good and bad. Like, sure, I don't want Whis to do a bunch of damage to me, but I don't want Beerus to interrupt my combos or anything like that. Another thing, too, is that when Beerus is still here, if you're getting Whis down quickly enough, he'll actually have a time of invulnerability where you need to wait for that dialogue to pass. And so I waited until after Beerus had left to use my limit burst, and it actually worked out really well. He didn't use his ultimate. I was able to keep connecting combos with him, and I finished Whis off really quickly. Apparently, not the fastest I've ever done that fight, which maybe that was the previous run, which again, unfortunately died, so I haven't shown you all. But it was still fast. Next, we're immediately jumping into the Bardock and Hero fight. So first we're fighting Bardock, and then Bardock and Mira, and then we'll have the Hero and Toa. And that'll be the last fight of the split.
I knew you. I've been waiting for you. Simply tracing our steps would eventually lead you to the wormhole. I suppose it's only a matter of time.
So here, Mira's part of this now, and we just need to beat them both as quickly as we can.
This time there will be no. This time.
Of course, poorly timed ultimates, or at least us swooping in on ultimates that we didn't realize were happening. It's never good. But there you see the Bardock the Masked Saiyan. He was really weak, and so I just left him to Trunks. Because I was like, surely, Trunks, surely. Yeah, okay, and finally he did manage to get those last, couple hits in. Still took longer than I think it should have, but I get it. Sometimes the NPCs, like the enemies, can be really, uncooperative. But we finished Mira off, so we're all good there. And now we're moving into the Hero and Toa fight. And even though, yes, Hero and Toa are both against you, both on a team, you can completely ignore Toa, and frankly, you should. All you need to do is beat the Hero. As soon as the Hero is knocked out, the fight is over. The issue is when Toa decides to fight you and starts knocking you around or, interrupting your combos or things like that. Usually, unless you attack her, it doesn't happen and Trunks will keep her occupied. Which is good because, frankly, the Hero can be punishing enough. He has a lot of ki. He's, reactive like a lot of the other people with dodging, with evasives, everything like that. He has ultimates that you cannot really avoid or you can't break them out of. And so depending on how nice the AI decides to be, or I guess how mean, like it can be a really challenging fight. And I've died against the Hero, and that's never fun. But thankfully there, we were able to end the split, and we only lost 3 seconds between the Whis training split and the Bardock and Hero split, so I'll definitely take that. And now you can see we're at the point in the run where the transformation is required. That's why I have the transformation split where it is. Frankly, if I were going to be consistent about where I started getting the transformation, I could move that up earlier, but it would disrupt the rest of the splits, or at least I'd have to do more manual work to really line them up. So for now, at least, I'm keeping it where it is, just where the transformation is required in the run. But since we already have it, we can just mark it off as soon as we're done talking to Elder Kai. Or whenever we want. You really just want to try to be consistent with yourself, at least to some degree. Now we're moving into the Toa fight. All we need to do for this is, knock her out. You don't quite knock her out. You get her down to like a sliver. So I'm using, hitting her away, using my limit burst, and then trying to connect. She's going to be using her vanish quite a bit because she's a terrible person. And then her stupid evasive where she just teleports away, and for a few seconds you just can't hit her. I hate it so much. But now I'm really just trying to get her down to that sliver. If she keeps guarding, that's obviously going to take more time. But there it is, she's down. So on the clear, we get to mark our split. And there it is. We lost a little bit more time, but what can you do? Now we're on the final split, the final battle. This again is against Mira, and it is composed of 3 different phases. This first phase is the easiest. This is the one where once you get Mira down to, he just has like a very small chunk of health left. Not a sliver, but a small chunk. You become invincible, and then he becomes invincible once he actually has a sliver left. And as far as we've found, there's no way to speed this dialogue up or to skip any of it or anything. Toa just has a lot to say, and she's gonna say it, by golly. So, I beat Mira as quickly as I can just for the sake of, being immune, basically. To the point where, I'm invincible. But it doesn't ultimately matter. As long as you get him down to that, threshold of health, by the time Toa finishes talking, which again it's like 2 minutes or something, you're fine. Yeah, so basically what I do, once I get him down and I'm invincible, I'll try to clear myself some room. So I'll try to knock him away. You see, I'm attempting that multiple times. It doesn't really work though. But finally get him in a combo, I knock him away again, then I start using Quick Sleep just to replenish my health. Because this is one of those instances where all 3 of these fights actually, or all 3 phases of this fight, they move straight on from one to the other, so you retain whatever health, ki, stamina you had from the previous phase. So in some regards that's good, in some regards that's bad. It's good because we keep our ki, it's bad because we keep our health and stamina. With this first phase, we're able to heal up to full again, and so that much is nice. We're basically moving into the next one with full ki, full stamina, and full health. But the issue is, if you die on any of these 3 phases, you're sent back to the cutscenes leading into this first fight, and then you have to re-listen to all of this Toa dialogue, and it's really punishing. And it can really happen because Mira, in his final phase in particular, is very liberal with his ultimate attacks. And there are 2 ultimate attacks that he uses in particular that you cannot break him out of. Like he's in one of them, he's fully concealed by an energy ball that, you know, like if you touch him, like it hurts you and like it keeps him safe. And in the other one, he's invisible. He's just like no longer a presence on the map. So it can be really frustrating. So I use my Limit Burst and I'm trying to get him down as quickly as I can. I very well maybe should have used my transformation, but obviously I did not. As soon as we beat him though, we're moving on to the next and final phase, which I refer to as Furry Mira for reasons that should be obvious. With this one, we do transform right away because with this fight especially, you know, not only this phase and like just the way that he behaves, but also because we have Goku here, I wanted to have the form that lets me, you know, connect with an enemy over a long distance. So using that spin dash. But basically, when we're in this fight, we're hoping that he'll just let us combo him for a good while and that he will not be, you know, like obstinate with his ultimate attacks. We do not want him to ultimate. Well, let me clarify that. Again, there are those two ultimates that I mentioned where he is invincible while he's using his ultimate. You just can't touch him, you can't break him out of him. But he has other ultimates too. So like this one, he's invulnerable because he's surrounded by that like ball of ki, basically, that ball of energy. But there are other ultimates that he has that you can break like normal. And that would mean, you know, his stamina's broken and you can continue to like just combo him. And obviously you want that to happen. But it's unlikely. Usually he uses the two where he's invincible. So we just need to deal like one more good blow and he's down. We mark our split 140-23. So again, unfortunately, okay, so first, focus on the bright side. This is a new personal best, which means currently it's the new PC any % new game world record for this game. And that's good. That's obviously good to get a new personal best. The sad part is just that I mean, first I think Goku. No. Okay, I did get the cool ending, you know, where presumably that means you did the final fight more quickly. But yeah, the sad part is, like I said, I did a run before this where I actually was going to get a sub 140 time, you know. Like, I guess technically this is the first sub 141, but, you know, I think it's more, it seems to be more important when it's, like, increments of 10. So it would have been the first one sub 40. Wait. Sub 140, there we go. I was like, why did that sound weird? It would have been the first sub 140 time, but alas, Mira bullied me really hard in, like, the last instance of his life. It was really painful. He used 5 ultimates in a row. You know, the ultimates of which I couldn't break him out of. And he was only one combo away from being defeated, so I was really close and it was really harsh, but yeah. What this means is I know that it's possible for me to get under an hour and 40 minutes in this game. It's just a matter of I have to get the right luck lined up and I have to be good enough in terms of skill, but yes. This marks the end of the run. Thank you guys for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to try the run for yourself, feel free to contact me or check out the runs in the leaderboard below, linked in the description. But we're ending this video, so with that, have a good one, everybody.